Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Audrey Rinlisbacher, author of The Mission Driven Life and founder of The Mission Driven Mom. Now, before we hop in today's incredible interview with Cadie Hatch, I just want to share a little context about this conversation. I recorded this interview a little while ago, and I didn't release it immediately because I knew some things were coming and I thought there might be a better time. And this month, while we're talking all about principles, it just felt like the perfect time for you to hear about Cadie's experience. Really incredible and beautiful what happened with her. And I want you to pay attention to where she was before and the process that she went through from that kind of ordinary individual that we often feel like we are to doing extraordinary things that she never thought she would be able to do. You're really going to love it because when women get the kind of education that they need to think differently, to see themselves in the world properly, and to understand and live according to principles, really magical things happen. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Cadie and that it inspires you in your life. Welcome back to the podcast. I am Audrey Rinlisbacher. I'm excited to be with you today. If you are new to the podcast, make sure and go back to the beginning, listen to some of those early podcasts so you can learn about the 7 Laws of Life mission and mission-driven stories and all of those things. You can have an understanding of what we do here at the Mission Driven Mom and on this podcast. I'm joined today by Cadie Hatch. She is a dear friend and an MDM Academy graduate, and we get to dig into her experiences and learn a lot from her today. I'm really grateful to her for joining us and for being willing to share herself, her time, and her experiences. Cadie, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Audrey. It has been a dream of mine to be on the podcast one day. So I'm excited.
There you go. Here we are, feeling dreams all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah. So tell us, just introduce yourself briefly. I'll ask you more questions. We'll dig into your story more. But tell us just a little bit about yourself.
sure. So I was born and raised in New Mexico. And I have to say that because I feel like there's not very many New Mexicans that you hear about.
Yes, that's you on the line for sure.
So I am a New Mexican. I grew up in a home where I was the youngest of 5 children. My father was self-employed. He and his first cousin were business partners for their entire career. My dad was a logger and he logged on the Mescalero Apache Indian Reservation near where we lived. And so with that, we got a lot of really unique experiences as kids. The things that we got to do, we spent a lot of time out in the woods. And he was an avid hunter, sportsman, and he loved being out in the woods. And it was just great. He gave us an amazing childhood, which I'm very grateful for. My mother, she homeschooled us. Now, when
Wow.
my oldest brother, when he was going into
Okay.
8th grade, my mom decided to pull everybody out in homeschool. That was the year that I would have gone into kindergarten. So I was homeschooled my entire K through 12 education.
What made her decide to do that? Do you know?
I think she was just, I want to do something different. I think I remember her saying a couple girls called my brother and she was like, oh no, we're not doing that. It's way too early for that.
Funny.
So anyway, and we had, because of my dad's work, we just had some really unique opportunities where the boys could go and they could work with him.
Oh,
And they were able to be out in the woods working with him and all of our extended family. And it was a really amazing opportunity for them
wow.
to just gain some life skills in that way. And so I think if there was like a theme for my life, like 3 things, it would probably really be like faith, family, and education. Because I think growing up as somebody who had been homeschooled and was used to doing things differently in terms of education,
Yeah.
I've not been too put off by going my own route in education
Yeah.
throughout my. And I think that kind of really set me up for some of the things that I ended up doing as I became an adult and as I continued in my education when I was younger.
Yeah.
I got my GED when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up moving out a few months before I turned 18. I moved to Arizona and I went to a little community college in Arizona. And that's where I ended up meeting my husband. I got my associate's degree in business administration and we met there. And I just fell in love with him almost like on first sight, which is so silly, but it's true. One of the things that attracted me so much to him was his I almost hesitate to use the word ambition because I feel like sometimes that can have this negative connotation of it's
Sure.
all about me.
Sure.
But he was just a doer. Like I could see that in him when we would be walking across campus and I would just watch the way that he walked. He was going somewhere, he had a plan. He always had a planner. He's always been an avid goal setter. And so he sets these goals and he reaches these goals. And so I knew from pretty early on when I first met him that he was going to be doing things in his life. Life wouldn't happen to him. He'd be doing things.
Well, that's awesome.
And I really wanted to go with him and be part of that with him.
Mhm.
And we met there at college. We were married, and it's been an adventure ever since. We thought we would stay in Arizona, but we got a job opportunity that brought us up to northeastern Nevada. And we've been up here for about 12 years, almost 13 years. We thought that we would just be here for a little while and go back down to Arizona, but we've loved it so much. I just don't know that we'll ever leave. I love it up here. It's been great. Yeah.
And you are on some land? You're
We have a little
in a
bit of
small
land.
town?
Yeah, so we live Elko is the main city of I mean, it's not huge. Elko is like the bigger town, and we live about 20 miles outside of Elko. And so we've got about 10 acres. We moved to that property in 2020. And I was just thinking about this morning. When we moved, we thought we've always just bought all of our furniture from yard sales. Let's get like new furniture.
There you
Like,
go.
so exciting. We're
Yes.
getting a new house, we'll get new furniture. So
Yeah.
we sold all of our furniture. We moved to our house in March of 2020. And then next week, everything shut down and there was no furniture to be had.
I don't know how I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
All we had this giant overstuffed beanbag, and that was the one piece of furniture that we had in our living room that we would all just sit on. We did have our beds. We did save our beds. So we had that, but
Yeah.
we didn't have a kitchen table. So we ended
Yeah.
up yard selling again and buying more
Mm.
yard sale because you couldn't get it from the furniture stores, which was fine.
That's hilarious.
But the thing also about
Yeah.
moving that property in 2020, and again, I think this kind of highlights Tim as my husband as a doer, is that when we moved there, I knew he wanted to plant a garden, but I thought, oh, eventually in a couple years, we'll plant a garden.
Yeah.
But we moved there in March, and by June, we had cleared off the property and we had put in an acre garden. And
Wow.
we planted almost all of it was pumpkins. We had a few potatoes, but it was all pumpkins that first year. And he was so driven to get that done. And I couldn't understand, like, why are you needing to plant this garden so much?
Yeah.
And he just kept saying to me, like, I just have a feeling that this garden, this will make people happy. That if they come out here, it will help people. They'll just be happy when they come get pumpkins.
Wow.
And again, that was COVID. That was March 2020. Everything shut down. By the time we got to October, we hadn't really met many people because we weren't going. Our churches were closed at that time. Our communities, different things that we would normally do to get together with people just weren't happening. We didn't really meet our neighbors. And so by October, everybody was ready to get out of the house. And because it was outside, we could say, come over. And we just put a sign out on the field and said, come in, get a pumpkin, we'll come and meet you. And that's how we met most of our neighbors.
Wow.
And it was a really great experience. And it's always been something that we've done as a thank you to the people who my husband works with in his business, his career. We've planted those pumpkins for the last we've done 4 out of the 5 years.
Oh, I know. And that's coming up. That's this week, right? You say that?
That's this week. We are having our pumpkin
Okay.
patch. It's early October.
So great.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about let's start talking about your MDM journey, how you learned about what we do and what that looked like for you. So go back. So here you are, you're a mom, you have a few children, and you're a full-time mom, right? Stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
And starting to homeschool. Did you always know? Was that always the plan? I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids and homeschool them.
Yeah, that was always my plan. I did tell Tim that. I was like, when we get married, because he was in school, we were both in school. And I said, my goal, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I really believe in the importance of moms at home with their kids.
Yeah.
So I want to have kids. I want to stay home with my kids. And I want to homeschool because I was homeschooled. I loved it. I want to do that. And bless him, he went along with me. And yeah, how I ended up actually finding MDM is interesting. At the time, my sister and I would talk a lot about books that we enjoyed. And I remember her saying, oh, you've got to go online to this website, Books You Love. Or I don't remember if it was a website. We're doing something called Books You Love. And you were doing these book reviews. I think you did them with your kids, right? Yeah. And I just remember I was like, oh, all these cute little kids. That's like my dream, right? Like, cool.
Yeah.
And so we would get on there. And what I appreciated about you, at that point, I only had my associate's degree. And again, that was in business administration. I had taken like one literature class. during my associate's degree time. And so I had read enough literature through that degree program to be like, every time they read a book, it's just all about some kind of sexual revolution, right? Like, how are women being oppressed and that they needed to be liberated through their sexuality? Every story that we read. And I would read some of these. I'm like, I really don't think that's what this story is about. And they were like, no, it is. This is what it's about. I was
Wow.
like, so when I read the books that you were suggesting in Books You Love, you had a way of reading the books that was so much more authentic to what I felt the author's actual intent was. And when I would leave there, I felt I would read something and I would come away feeling ennobled, like I was a better person for having read that.
Wow.
Even if it was something that I didn't agree, like the author may have said some things I didn't agree on, I still felt like I came away a better person because I had learned something from you in how you had read that book.
That's
And
great.
at that point, I think 3 kids when I would read Books You Love. And we got busy and life just got away from us. And so I got away from what you were doing. But every once in a while, I think I would check back in because I just had this thought one day she's going to have a school or something. And I just want to go to her school. Like that would be so great. So in the meantime, I have to admit here, when my husband was getting his bachelor's degree, I was not a very supportive wife. This goes back to this idea of me being like my dad was an entrepreneur. I was a homeschooled kid. If you wanted to go the college route, that's fine. But if you don't want to go the college route, like you can start a business. That's fine too. And so when my husband was getting his bachelor's degree, there were just times when it was really hard. And when it would get really hard, he'd be like, I don't want to do this right now. And I'd say, you don't have to. We'll just go start this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was like, that is not helping me in this moment. And I'm like, but really, we could. You don't have to do this. Like, we could do something else. And so I regret that. I do regret that I was not more supportive of him in his getting his bachelor's degree. So what ended up happening was years later, he wanted to go back for his master's. And he'd always said he wanted a master's degree. And so he told me, he was like, I feel like now's a good time for me to go back for my master's degree. And I feel if you were getting your bachelor's degree, it might go better than last time. Like maybe you'd be more supportive.
Oh, funny.
So I was like, fine, sure, I'll go get my bachelor's degree. So at that point, my husband's getting his master's. I'm getting my bachelor's. Second grader, a kindergartner, and 2 toddlers. And
Wow.
we went back to school and he got his master's degree and I got my bachelor's
How
degree.
did you do it? What did you do with kids and how did you afford it? And
Yeah, we are very blessed that he has a really great job. It's been a blessing to our family. And so we were able to afford it we were able to just manage it with income. And then with the kids, it was one of those things I was like, I haven't been sleeping for years anyway. So now that the baby is like
why
sleeping,
sleep now?
yeah, like sleeping, I can get like a solid 6 hours. And then if I get up at 5, I can study for an hour or 2 before the kids wake up. And then we can just go with the rest of the day. And that's how it went for a while. A lot of early mornings and late nights.
Wow.
Probably got through that. And it was a really good experience. I'm really glad that I went back and got my bachelor's degree. I got my degree in English language and literature. So now this time, everything that I was doing was reading.
Yeah.
And I had such high hopes. So we're going to go read some Shakespeare. I'm going to read some of the greats. This is going to be amazing. I'm so excited. That's what I wanted. I wanted to read some really good classics and have great conversations.
Yeah.
And that is not what happened at all. So I was highly disappointed in the education that I got for my actual degree. One of the things that was really, preached maybe is not the best word, but it seems like the most fitting word to use. One of the ideas that was most heavily preached to us as students was postmodernism. Everything was falling apart. Humanity was awful. There was nothing was going to get any better. So it was just do whatever you have to do to survive and get yourself on top. That's the goal.
And there's nothing that's objectively true.
No,
Just
and you could argue
do whatever
anything.
works.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we would read books together, we were told never to go back and look at the author, never to research the author,
Yeah.
to consider the time in which that person lived, but just to take the book, open it up, and just start shredding it. And that was the goal. Just take it completely apart. Deconstruction was the thing. Like just deconstruct until any bit of beauty that was ever in this book or intended to be in the book was gone.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was like soul searing. It was a horrible way to go through reading books. I felt awful about myself. I felt awful about the world. I would look at things that my fellow students would say in these forums, these conversations that we would have. And it was just heartbreaking to see that any argument always came down to men are evil. white people are awful
Mm.
and everything in this life is every system is designed to make you fail.
Yeah.
And I just didn't believe that.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with that for 2 years and it just starts to eat into your psyche.
Yeah.
It's very degrading. And so I remember at one point, I had completely forgotten about you, Audrey. I'm sorry, but I totally forgot about you during this time.
Like, fine.
It's funny. But I'd forgotten I had read with you until we read a play, A Doll's House.
Adele.
And I can't remember the author. Do you remember the author?
It is. Oh, now that you asked.
Like, I had it
Yeah.
written.
It's what's this bucket? I can see his face actually. I can't remember.
Yeah. But we read
I'll remember.
Henrik Ibsen.
Ibsen. That's right.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So we read the play A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen.
Mm.
I remembered, oh my gosh, I remember this play because I read it with that lady, Audrey, in Books You'll Love. And so at that point, I was maybe 6 months away from finishing my degree. And I've got to go see what that lady said about Ibsen and A Doll's House. Like, surely better than this sludge that I'm working through with this college class. Like, this is just terrible. Well, I went back and I found Books You'll Love. And by that point, you had started The Mission Driven Mom and it was just getting going. So I found some of the information I was looking for about Ibsen. And then I told my husband, when I finish this degree, I really want to go and I want to study with Audrey. I want to go to her online academy. And he is very good. He was much more supportive of me and was like, if that's what you want to do, we can make that happen.
Yeah.
And I graduated in April of 2020. And I think I started with you in May of 2020
Yeah.
at the Mission Driven Mom. And that was a very eye-opening experience because it was all those things I thought that I was going to get in my degree program, but it was not the college. It was at your academy. I was like, we're reading great books. I feel really good about what I'm reading. I come away ennobled. These authors are being honored for the good work that they have done, or we are looking at the things that they have written that are not correct. And we're able to objectively see why they are wrong. We are coming away, I am coming away a better person after having experienced these books. And so it's a long story, but it took several years, but eventually I made my way back to MDM.
Yeah. So you were in it for the kind of the more intellectual piece, the academic, the reading. So did you with that expectation, did you feel disappointed that there were some children's novels or that we vet the content so much and it's just selections from different books? Or how did you feel about that being the case? Because mostly we'll read all of a biography or a novel or something, but the other ones we're just looking because we're so heavily focused on the principle where we vetted those down. So we're disappointed about that or?
No, actually, in a lot of ways, I appreciated it because I could see that you were trying to hone a skill. Like you were trying to give me a specific skill. And when I went through level 1, I'm not sure how things are now. When I went through level 1, things were very much more self-paced and had an accountability partner, the most amazing lady. I loved my accountability partner going through level 1. She did me so many great services. We were able to call each other, and really the accountability partner was just what it sounds like. We would reach out to each other about once a month or once every 2 weeks. We would say, it's our goal. We want to get through this much of the workbook. At the time, there was a workbook that we had. And so I want to get through this much of the workbook and the readings, and then we're going to call each other and see how it went. And the two of us together, you had a celebration coming up that fall, and we wanted to finish before the celebration so that we could kind of be
fast. Yeah.
And we went through it pretty fast. We went through level 1. I think it was I want to say it was 6 months, somewhere in there. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But we did. We went through it pretty fast, but I was so glad that we did because it was just I just felt like we were laser focused on this is the skill that we're trying to learn. These are the principles that we're learning. This is how we're implementing them. Yeah. And it was a great blessing. And because I think part of that came because I had just come out of my degree where I was used to having some deadlines and I'd already kind of worked my schedule out with my family. That helps me be able to accomplish that goal so quickly.
Yeah. So what are a couple of your takeaways from level 1? What would you say in terms of the content? You obviously went through it. You gained some skills. You can talk about it, obviously, from the academic side, but also just the principles side. What are your remembrances of that? What do you feel like it gave you?
You had created a card and there was a card that you had given out at one of the celebrations, but you'd also created the 12 characteristics of a true person. And that has stuck with me. Like I use that often. I used it very regularly, especially at that time. I still pull it out and use it and look at it to try to figure out, is this thing that I'm studying right now, is this a true principle? The main characteristic that has stuck with me is the win-win. And is the thing that I'm doing right now creating a win-win situation for
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah.
If it's not a win for everybody, then it's not done yet. I have to keep working until everybody has won and feels good about it.
That's awesome.
The other thing that was a huge takeaway from level one was your willing versus willful lesson. You compared C.S. Lewis to Nietzsche. You say Nietzsche or Nietzsche? How do you say his name?
I've heard both. I think it's Nietzsche, but
Okay.
yeah.
So you compared C.S. Lewis to Nietzsche in that one, and I have listened to that. I probably listen to that one still a couple times a year
Wow.
because it made such an impact on me. This idea of, are you willing to let go of the things that you want, let go of the way that you think things need to be, to let God take over
Yeah.
and move you where you need to be?
Yeah.
Are you willing or are you willful? And I had never considered my attitude in that way. Is this a willing attitude that I have right now, or is this a willful attitude?
Yeah.
That made a huge impact on me. And it's something that I still think about regularly when I feel like I have a decision to make and I don't necessarily know which way to go. I think often about, am I being willing or willful right now?
Wow. So what do you think about the whole emphasis on principles? Why do you feel like that matters? What's the value of it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So interestingly, I remember for years something had been like niggling at me in the corner of my mind. And it was like, I don't understand when people say this word principle, I don't understand what they mean.
Yeah.
And sometimes I hear a principle and it's just like a one word thing, like forgiveness might be a principle or
Mhm.
service might be a principle. And it was like, that's just one word. And then other people would say something and it would be this big long phrase. And that was a principle. And it was like, I don't what exactly? Help me understand. What
Yeah.
are we talking about? And when I went back to MDM and I saw that principles was such a heavy emphasis that was in the academy, I was like, this is the thing that I need because I don't understand what people are talking about when they're talking about principles. They're like important, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And so it helped me so much to come in to MDM and start studying, looking for principles in the things that I read. And the principles being, what is a truth that is in this book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, biography, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
What is a truth that I can find here that I can then take into my life, apply to my circumstances that will make my life or my family's life better?
Yeah.
And the fact that we practice that across so many genres of literature was really valuable to me. Fairy tales have been something that I've been thinking about recently because I've been listening to someone who is thinking about C.S. Lewis and Tolkien as myth writers. They were great at telling story through myth.
Yeah.
How we have this idea that a myth is a lie, but really they would say a myth is a way of telling the truth that is different than any other way of being able to tell a truth.
Yeah.
So I think about that with fairy tales. Fairy tales tell a truth that it's hard to convey in any other way.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this with The Princess and the Pea. We were just talking about it the other day, me and my husband. And I'll give you an example maybe of what it was like to read something like that from like my degree perspective.
Yeah.
So you have this queen, her son, the prince is wanting to marry this princess. And so she puts her through this test where she puts the pea underneath all of these mattresses. And she wants to know, can this princess feel if there is a pea underneath all of these mattresses? And the princess wakes up the next morning and she's all black and blue and she says, I've been all beat up. There is something underneath my mattresses. And the queen says, oh, you really are a princess because you could feel that pea underneath all those mattresses. The way that can be interpreted, a lot of people would be like, this is the most ridiculous story.
Yeah.
This girl is such a wuss. Like, she's all beat up. She's just going to be like somebody that you don't want to have to deal with. She's full of drama. She's just not someone that you would want to have be married to your son.
Yeah.
But if you look at it through this story, like through this lens of myth, and it's telling the truth. If the princess, her role in a fairy tale is to be the virtue. She is the symbol of virtue. She is the symbol of what is good. Her job is to be the compass for everybody else to know what is right and what is wrong. And this pea that's underneath these mattresses is something that is wrong. It's something that is bad. And she can sense it. Even underneath all those layers of comfort, she can sense that something is wrong.
Yeah.
And so this test that the queen puts her through to see if she is a good match for the prince who
Yeah.
has to defend. The prince's job is to defend all of that truth. He
Yeah.
can't defend it if he doesn't have the compass to point him to what is good and what is wrong.
Yeah.
There is an equal match between a prince and a princess, and they each have their job. And
Mhm.
so there is a difference. That is a myth to teach us about what are the roles of men and women. They each have a really important role, and it's okay that they have a different role.
That's
The woman's role, she points to what is virtuous, what is good, and the man's role is to defend that. And we need each other.
Yeah.
And so that idea of, okay, I just learned a principle from the princess and the pea.
Mm?
Principle here about what are there gender roles? I think there are.
Yeah.
And should we notice them? Should we give them any credence, any credibility? I
Yeah.
think we, how do I apply this in my life? I know what my role is in my marriage. My job is to seek out virtue and to notice when it's around and to notice when it's not there
Mm.
and to be this compass for my family. That's my job. And so I have to be careful about the things that I take into my mind. I have to be
Yeah.
careful about the things that I think about, that I dwell on, because my role is to help us discern what is good and what is virtuous.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That's awesome. Okay, so you've clearly really gotten to a point where you feel sounds like you have a really great handle on the nature of principles and skills for discerning them and why they matter so much and all of that. So tell us a little bit about building a principle-centered home and life, and then we'll talk for a minute about some of the things that you've done in the community. I know in level 3, we did all of these worldviews and some community outreach and things like that. But what difference has it made for you to have this understanding about principles, this ability to discern them better? How has it changed things for you and for your family?
When we were in level 2, we read the Oxbow incident, and that book had a really great impact on me. I think partly because of when we were reading it. If I remember right, we were reading the Oxbow incident, which, just to summarize it briefly, it's about cattle rustling. And there are some cows that have been stolen. And this town has been having problems with rustlers for a while. And so they mount up a posse and they go and they find the guy that rustled these cattle and they administer justice in their own idea.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't want to spoil the book for people. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spoil it for you.
Okay.
But when I read that book, we were discussing mob mentality. We had just gotten through, I think January 6th had just happened like a couple of weeks before. We had just seen a bunch of riots happening all across the country during that summer of COVID and all of those things.
Yeah.
Like we had seen a lot of mob mentality happening in
Yeah.
real life.
Yeah.
And so I have my book. And I went to the back and I wrote down, I found 11 characteristics of a mob. And
Wow.
when I saw what the characteristics of a mob were, I started to really check myself when I would start feeling very passionate about something, because mobs are always very passionate.
Yeah.
And passion is not a bad thing, but it's all about how are we directing it and are we allowing our passion for something to turn off our ability to think
Yeah.
and to be objective and to
Yeah.
search for truth first.
Yes.
I think to a degree, it comes back to what I was saying about being this compass within your family. I think women are the compass of the family.
Yeah.
And so we have to watch where our passions lead us. And those passions are important. They're valuable. We need them, but we need to make sure that we are directing them in the proper place. As far as things that we read in level 3 that really helped me, human action laws. Talking about the human action laws, which basically it was just understanding that everybody does what they are doing for a reason.
Yeah.
You may not agree with the reason, you may not like the reason, but they're not just like out of control, acting without, how would I want to say it? People do things on purpose for a reason.
Yeah.
They are motivated by something.
Yeah.
Every action is motivated by something.
Yeah.
And when I learned about that in the human action laws, it helped me understand that I need to build better bridges with people, that people can have a difference of belief or a difference of opinion than what I have, but there is something driving that and motivating that. And I need to try to understand what that is.
Yeah.
And it helps me have greater compassion for other people and to connect with them more. It helps me to recognize like this is a person who at the very base of themselves is probably acting because they've heard some principle, some truth that's motivating them to act, but that truth has been twisted in some way. So how can I get back understanding that they are motivated by some truth somewhere back in there, something's motivating them? Where is it that we finally meet? What is the truth that they are acting on that if it's a truth, then I should be willing to act on it as well? How do we get all the way back to that first principle
First principle.
so that then we can build off of the first principle and come
Yeah.
to a conclusion that will work for all of us, that will give us that win-win situation?
Yeah.
That was pretty huge for me in level 3.
That's awesome. So, talk to us about what you've done since MDM, this big major project here in me that you were involved with. How did you get involved? Why did you get involved? How did who you had become to that point, the education that you'd had, did that make a difference? How did it make a difference? Where's the project now? 'Cause this is a fun story.
It's a pretty incredible story. It's, I feel like, a very much a miraculous story, and my involvement in it at all, I still feel is miraculous that I was even a part of it.
Yeah.
So the project that I took on, I think it happened because I asked God for it.
So just for context, for those who don't know much about the Academy, of course, there's 7 laws of life mission, and the Academy walks women through those laws. Laws 1 and 2, loving God and yourself is level 1. And then level 2 is love of truth. And that's where Cadie got even more acquainted and deep dive in all of the different readings around first principles and actionable principles and writing them and living them. And then level 3 is becoming servant leaders, loving humanity. And so we begin to learn about the way other people think and why they think the way they think. And that's what kind of Cadie's giving reference to, that understanding where we can build bridges, how we align with certain truths and how we can build on those. And then we encourage the women to do some kind of project. And Cadie wanted to do a large project, which is great. There are some parameters around that project. When that project's done, then you graduate, which is really fun. So this is when she says she was taking on a project that she asked the Lord, what project should I do? And this is what happened.
We were reading the book Christy. It's about this girl, 19, 20 years old. She goes up into the Appalachian Mountains and she teaches school to some people up there. And it is an incredible story. In some ways, it reminded me somewhat of this area that I live in, because where I live, we're pretty rural. We have a lot of ranching families. And for many of those families, for their kids to be able to go to high school, it can often mean that they have to move away and live in town for those 4 years of high school. And I had just talked to somebody who was saying, our oldest is getting to the point where we're needing to decide, are we going to keep her out here with us on the ranch and kind of homeschool through that experience, or are we going to send her to live with some friends in town? That happens pretty regularly for these families. And it just reminded me a little bit of the people in the book, Christy.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with this idea of having a school. And I really wanted to have a school that promoted virtue and goodness in the students. And so I had just been thinking about Christy for a long time, and a lot of things happened in 2020. It was the Christmas of 2020. I stumbled upon Hillsdale College K through 12 schools, and it just came across my phone or whatever. And I saw that and I was like, that would be interesting. That would be cool if we could start a little charter school. And so I emailed them and I said, can you tell me what it would look like? What do I need to do to start one of these schools? And the list they sent back was gargantuan. I was like, that's not going to happen. And I knew one person in my community who had started a charter school, and I sent her that list as like a gag. If you ever wanted to start another charter school, here's one we could do. She was like, yeah, that's funny. And time passed, things moved on. And 2 years later, she reached out to me and said, hey, did you know that there was a group of people from Elko that went and toured a Hillsdale school in Idaho? Were you part of that group? And I said, no, I had no idea that anyone was going to tour a Hillsdale school in Idaho. I totally would have gone. That would have been great. And she said, here's a contact for this group. Maybe you could reach out and just see what they have to say. And I was like, okay. So I call this number that she gives me, and I get an answering machine, and I leave a message on the answering machine, and I wait to get a call back. And in the meantime, as I'm waiting to get a call back from this person, I learned a little bit more about who he was and his political career that he had here in Nevada, and that he had run against Harry Reid. And he was to me, in my mind, I was like, this guy will never call me back. Like, an important person, never going to call me back. What was I thinking? Why did I even call him?
Yeah.
I just was like, Oh, I didn't realize that's who that was when I
Yeah.
made that phone call.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was just like, this is not going to go anywhere. That was embarrassing. He's not going to call me back. It'll be fine. Probably about a week after that, I was sitting in my living room. I still remember this. I was sitting in my living room. I was doing morning time with my kids. We were reading a story and I get a call back from this man. And I ran into my bathroom because that's the only quiet place. Ran into my bathroom and
Uh-huh.
and he said, I'm so glad you called. We would love to have your help. Go to this place at this time, get the information for our next meeting, and we'll meet you there. And I said, okay. And so when I went into that first board meeting, I only knew one other person in the room, and there were probably about 12 people. And these were all various people from our community who had done incredible things. We had county commissioners, and we had various people who owned businesses and people who had made a career in education. These were people who had a lot of influence and a lot of background in we're doing. And every meeting for the first 6 months, I walked in just scared to death because I was like, I have no idea what we're even doing really or talking about, but I'm just going to keep showing up.
Sure, yeah.
And I learned so much about the process of what it would be to start a charter school.
Yeah.
I was very ignorant. I was like, when we first started, I was like, 6 months. We'll get this thing open in 6 months. It'll be great. And again, I learned quite a bit. It took us 2.5 years to finally get the charter school open. And it just opened just a couple months ago, August of 2025. That's why I say to me, it's very miraculous that I even was involved in this group and was in the room at all. But I truly think it happened because I asked God, I want a school. Like, I really want a school that teaches kids about virtue. I have seen what postmodernism does in education. This is a
Yeah.
horrible thing. I do not want children growing up with this.
Yeah.
Can we get a school that teaches virtue?
Yeah.
And my role on the school board for the charter school was I had the most experience at the time with classical education and children because I had classically educated my children their entire education. And I could speak to the more classical elements of what a Hillsdale K through 12 charter school was intended to be.
Yeah.
And so I could help inform on that level what was going on. And it became my role over time to everybody on the board did everything. Everybody was pitching in wherever they could. But generally, my role was to do some of the community relations, public relations. I did several interviews with another one of our board members, always with me, but we would do interviews on the radio here locally. We did about 3 of those community events where we would try to educate the community on what it was, what a classical charter school was and what that meant. And so that was my role, and being the liaison between our charter school board and our school district school board, the public school board. And it was an incredible experience. One of the things that I know we talk about a lot at the academy is when you have something that you're wanting to do, take your family with you.
Yeah.
Have your family be involved in the mission work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And when with my kid, I remember there was that first, I have to tell you this story because it's an important story.
Okay. Let's hear it.
I struggled a lot with not feeling very qualified to be part of this board.
Yeah.
And I remember we had to do something. We were turning in an application and we needed to have everybody's resume on the board. And I was like, I don't have a resume. I've been at home for
You.
damn. I don't have
Yep.
a resume.
Yep.
And so I really was having a freak out moment over this stupid resume. It's so dumb when I look back at it, but at the time it was a big deal to me. And I remember just like saying to myself over and over again, you are not a professional. I am not a professional. I don't have anything to put on here to convince anyone for why I could be on this board. I have no experience that is meaningful to anybody.
Yeah.
And I really struggled with that. And when I remember praying about it that night and just asking God, what am I supposed to do? I'm freaking out here about this stupid application. And I remember the answer that I got was, I did not make you to be a professional. And I was surprised that it took me back. And I was like, I feel like I need that right now, though. In the months that came, we held a community event where we had basically a big information meeting for anybody in the community that would want to come and learn about this school. And we had a question and answer session at the end. Now, we had a gentleman who was very gracious, who was running a Hillsdale school. He was the principal of a Hillsdale school. He was willing to come and speak to our community and tell them about, this is the school that we have in Idaho. This is how it's going. You could have the same thing in Elko. Is this something that you would want? They asked us as we were putting together the program and trying to figure out how we were going to logistically have everything run out for this meeting. The board asked if there was a student who'd be willing to give a poem, to recite a poem at this meeting. And I was like, that's me. I'm the one with the students. And so I went home and I asked my son, he was 12 at the time.
Yeah.
I said, would you be willing to memorize a poem to recite at this meeting? And he was like, I guess. Okay. He doesn't like memorizing things, but I was like, could you just, it would be great.
Yeah.
And so he memorized the poem If by Rudyard Kipling.
So good.
It's such a great poem. It's
So
so
good.
good. And so he got up there, he'd been working on it, and he
Mhm.
could not say it correctly. Like, I'd been practicing with him, he'd been practicing on his own. He could not get through that. It's a fairly long poem,
Yeah.
and he just couldn't get through it without messing up a little bit. And he could always get back on track, but just never could do it. And so he was nervous when it came time for him to get up and give that poem. And I told him, like, you're going to be great. It's going to be fine. Like, you got this. And he went up there and he had never said that poem so well. He didn't make a single mistake. He got it. And there was there was like 80 people in there watching
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And he was
Big
nervous
deal.
and he got up and he said that poem and it was excellent. He did so well. I was so proud of him.
Yeah.
And at the end, the whole meeting finishes. Well, when our speaker got up to talk about the schools, he got going and he was going on and talking about what a Hillsdale school is and how great they are. And then he stopped and he said, but wait, I want to tell that boy what a good job he did on that poem. He said, we have kids memorize that poem in our school, and it's a requirement that they pass off that poem. And I didn't know this. I wasn't aware
Oh,
of the poem that they use, but
wow.
you have to memorize that poem because it's such a great story in that poem and it teaches so many great life skills. And he said, I have seen kids get up there and they struggle through that poem. It's hard. And at the end, they'll be pumping their fists in the air. Yeah, I did it. And some kids will walk off in tears, but we teach them to persevere with this poem. Like, they have to memorize and say that poem. And he said, that was one of the best recitations I've heard of that poem. You did such a great job. And so at the end, everything finishes. We have our great meeting, and it was really helpful to the community to hear him speak. At the end, I went up to meet him, and I have my little lanyard on with my little name tag that says board member. And I walk up to him, and I'm there with my son, and he just complimented my son again. You did such a good job.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and he said, you're the mom, aren't you? And I said, yes, I'm the mom. I'm not the professional. I'm not the board member. I'm the mom. This is my job. And it was such an incredible experience to me of the value of being a mother, and that this project, this school was valuable and important to me, but that was not my job. I was not made to be a professional. I was made to be the mom. And
Wow.
moms have such a power for good in this world.
Yeah.
And I loved that when I came to MDM celebrated moms. And you can go on. I appreciated that it gave me an opportunity to do this big project. That was something I never would have done without MDM. But first, it helped me understand you have an important role to play as a mom.
Yeah.
That should not be undervalued. And you shouldn't undercut yourself because you're just the mom. Like, moms are really important, and they're the ones that get a lot of things, a lot of the great things done. They are the compass for the home. And nowhere else was I hearing this, right? Like, my degree my time at college was not going to tell me that I was valuable to the community, to the society as a whole because I was a mother. No one else was saying that.
Yeah.
And so to come to a place where I could study and feel so much value in what I wanted, my dream was to be a stay-at-home homeschool mom. And it helped me be better at that. And then to go on and do some other things, which I'm very proud of my school. I love it. I love being there. My kids and I go now. We volunteer. We go in on Tuesdays and we spend a couple hours every Tuesday at the school helping the little kids. And I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
But my kids are with me
Yeah.
and they are my focus at this time in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for that because it's not always, there's times and seasons, like it's not always going to be this way, but
Yeah.
I didn't leave them behind to fulfill some big project that I wanted to do. They came with me and they were a part of it with me the whole time. And so is my husband. It's been a family affair and it's been great.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Oh, I love that so much. And now the work that you put in, showing up, being the mom, representing the parents and the classical model of education, and being your voice was so unique. And I know, having talked with you on and off throughout the process, that there were some moments of really facing fears. There were some moments of real frustration and overwhelm, but your dedication to the benefit to the community, your family knew how important that was. They knew what a difference it would make, how it could nurture and nourish your community. And your voice was so needed at all of those meetings. I know a little bit because we had these conversations now and again, and there would be these moments when you were the only voice saying that. You were the only one giving that perspective, and it was so needed. They would have perhaps gone off in the weeds a little bit or in a different direction, and you held that line. The ideals that you had started out with, you would not flinch on those. And the big reasons for why this mattered so much and the quality that it needed to be. And it was so inspiring to me to watch you battle through that. And how do you feel? And we'll just wind up with this. And I have one more question for you. How do you feel that committing to that project and seeing it through, what did it do for you personally?
I think one of the things that I learned about myself through that project was that if the Lord asked me to do something, that I would say yes, even if it was hard. That school was extremely difficult. There were moments that were very exhausting and hard, and it was just perseverance over and over again. We would try. We met with a lot of rejection, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
We met with plenty of pushback.
Yeah.
Some people were very concerned about what a classical school would mean and what it would look like.
Yeah.
And so it had to be learning how to communicate with people that you didn't agree with. And I'm still not great at it. I wish I were better, but it gave me a lot of opportunity to practice. But ultimately, what I learned about myself is if the Lord asks me to do something, I will do it. And I know I said that I asked for that school, but I asked at the beginning. By the end, he was asking me to finish
Yeah.
because I didn't want to finish.
Yeah.
It was hard. But with him, I was able to stick it through and we were able to finish and we were able to get the school to opening.
Yeah.
We're still early on and we're still a growing organization. We still have a lot to learn, but I'm so grateful that when the kids come in, they've got a place to come where they're being taught to be honest, to persevere, to serve each other, to finish their work. They can do this. They can do hard things. And they are told that all the time when they come in. You can do hard things. We believe in you. We encourage you. Be courteous. Be kind to the people around you. It feels good to be in a space like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, how did that school change me? It was to know that I really can do all things through Christ.
It's beautiful. I think it's so ironic too that it's such an open-handed gift of servant leadership because your children won't even ever attend it.
Yeah, that's true.
It won't even benefit your
it.
family in that way. It benefits your community. It was outward looking. And the community blesses you, you bless the community. We all give into the community and it gives back to us. So of course there's that, but I think it's pretty incredible to take it on and
Yeah.
persevere, even knowing your children would never even attend it.
That did change. At the beginning, I thought that they would be able to attend, but over time we realized that in order to open and to be financially solvent through these beginning years, the school would have to open as a kindergarten through third grade only and add one grade level every year. And all of my kids were past third grade.
Yeah, all your kids.
So we're continuing to homeschool, but I love having them come with me when we go to volunteer in the school. It's a great opportunity.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, that's so awesome. So amazing.
For anyone who's listening, I would say as women, we have an incredible influence on the lives around us. And I don't think we realize how big that influence is. I still don't really realize how big my influence is and often struggle with really considering that I have much of an influence.
Yeah.
But I know that it's there. It's not unlike the story that I told you about the princess and the pea.
No.
As the women, our role is to find goodness and virtue and to point it out. If I could give any encouragement to women in general, it would be guard your marriages. Keep that relationship sacred, respect it, show respect to your husband, and be grateful for the support that he lends to you and lend him support. Because marriages that fail really, that impacts so much your children. So if you want to have a really positive impact for your children, guard your marriage. Show your kids what a healthy and happy marriage looks like and give them,
Yeah, I love that. What's the last thing you would say to anyone who's considering the Academy or coming to the event, getting involved in some way with the programs at the Mission Driven Mom?
I would have to say, I've had a lot of different educational experiences. I was the homeschooled kid. I was someone who's gone to college. I've helped with a charter school. Like I'm all about education wherever you can get education. What I would say about MDM is I never got a better education anywhere than in the time that I spent studying at MDM. That was the most foundational in helping me realize the good that I could do in the world. And when I graduated from college, I had this belief that when I graduated, I would feel competent, like I could go out and I could do something in my community. And that did not happen. If anything, it was the exact opposite of that. I felt like I didn't have any tools to be able to serve people Even if I were to get a job teaching in the literature department, I didn't feel like I had the tools to do that.
Yeah.
MDM is an online academy. You're not going to get an accredited degree from there. But if you want an actual, true, solid education, go to MDM because you will finish and you will feel that you can go out and do some good in the world. And I would never have taken on the charter school if I had not done MDM first. I would never have done it because I had some of that background that helped guide me in knowing I understood where I could find true principles. I knew that I could find principles of education that would help guide what the school would be. I knew I could find principles of relationships that would help guide my marriage to be the best that it could be. Those I got actionable tools that helped me to live a great life. And so if you're wanting a good education, it's not always about the career at the end. Sometimes it's just being educated in how to live well.
Yeah.
And I think MDM does that so well for moms. And I just love and appreciate you, Audrey, for what you gave me because that was what the Academy did for me. And I am so grateful because I know it's not been an easy road for you either to keep this up. And it is a huge gift and a huge blessing to have been able to have been a part of it. And I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you're right. It has not all been easy, but such a joy. Met some of the most incredible people in my life, you're included. And in that, and anyway, it's a joy and a privilege. And it is just like your experience with the charter school that there's highs and lows, but looking back, boy, so glad you did it.
Yeah,
So glad you
absolutely.
did it. And come out of it such a different person. So thank you, Cadie, so much for everything that you shared. You are such an inspiration. I hope that moms will take to heart what you've said and really understand their incredible worth and the need that the world has for them to rise to the occasion in their motherhood and be the best mothers and wives they can be. It's so critical for all of us. So anyway, such a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Audrey. It was great. I appreciate it. Love you, friend.
You too. I hope you were really inspired by that conversation with Cadie. Isn't she so awesome? Oh, I love her. Now, if you felt while you were listening to her story, if you felt inspired, if you thought, I want what Cadie has, I want to become a little bit more like Cadie. I want to be stronger. I want to be more confident. I want to do things that feel impossible for me right now. Then I want to invite you to a free training. And I'm going to walk you through why women and mothers, just like you and I, feel stuck and frustrated and overwhelmed, and the education that we didn't get that we desperately need in order to pull out of that. And I want to show you the one thing that I've discovered that's going to make all the difference for you and your family. And the things that we're going to talk about in this training are the exact framework that women like Cadie used to become the mission-driven moms that are out there really making a huge difference and feeling more confident and intentional and clear. So the link is in the description to register. I would love to see you there. And if you're someone who's really wanting more, who wants to step it up and become more of who you can become, I know that that's possible for you. So join me for this training so I can show you how.